Live, have you started, ma'am?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we should wait a minute for Ashutosh to join.
Yeah, we are waiting for Ashutosh.
Sir, he is joining in a minute.
Okay, he is on.
Professor Ashutosh has joined now. So, ma'am, please continue.
Welcome, Professor Ashutosh.
Thank you. Good morning, ma'am. Good morning,
Namaskar.
sir. Thanks to
So thanks for joining
this
us.
opportunity. Yeah.
So we will start today's proceedings. Since there are a few new faces, let me introduce myself. I am DharamVir, General Secretary of SPSTI, the Society for Promotion of Science and Technology in India. I welcome all of you to today's lecture, or rather lectures, on Nobel Peace Prize 2022. This lecture is being organized by us in association with the IAPT, Indian Association for Physics Teachers, the Punjab State Council for Science and Technology, the Chandigarh chapters of the National Academies of Science, NASI and INSA, and the INYAS, Indian National Young Academy of Sciences, who are proactively involved in this program. SPSTA has been holding lectures on Nobel Prizes in Sciences since 2013. But for the past 3 years, we are including in this series the prizes in peace, economics, and literature, with the expanded notion of sciences. That is, all human activity is encompassed in its fold. Professor Anupama Roy from JNU and Professor Ujjwal Kumar Singh from University of Delhi are joining our forum for the first time. We welcome them. It is a special honor that Professor Virendra Kumar, Emeritus Professor, Department of Law of Punjab University, is joining us today as guest of honor. We are also delighted that eminent scholars of PU, such as Dr. Manish Sharma, Professor Anupama Roy, and Professor Ashutosh Sharma, have consented to introduce the speakers. So thanks to all of you. Welcome again. And now I request Professor Grover to give his opening remarks and give a brief on the lecture series. Professor Grover, please.
Good morning, all. I'm indeed very happy to welcome both the speakers, our guest of honor, along with all our audience on the occasion of expository lectures on Nobel Peace Prize for the year 2022. The SPSTI's annual lecture series on Nobel Prizes, Abel Prize, Turing Award, and World Food Prize comprises 9 lectures. This series in this full form is only 3 years old. However, by virtue of SPSTI's collaboration with Chandigarh chapter of Science Academies, NASI, INYAS, and INSA, and the State Councils of Science and Technology in Haryana and Punjab, and organizations like PEC and Indian Association of Physics Teachers, this series has gained wide acceptance in academia and the civic society. Soon after the announcement of Nobel Prize winners in the second week of October this year, we started to receive suggestions for speakers from different institutions in Chandigarh region. This has been very satisfying for us. I personally believe that if we can run this series in an efficient manner for 5 continuous years, it would continue thereafter in a perpetual manner. The demand from students, faculties, and general public for these lectures will motivate the young INEAS members from different institutions in our region to keep it going with the help of their colleagues and the fellows of science academies residing in the Chandigarh region. The Nobel Prize for Peace differs from other Nobel Prizes in the sense that even organizations and institutions can be nominated for it. The rest of the Nobel Prizes are awarded to individuals only. The Nobel Prize for Peace for the year 2022 was awarded to World Food Programme of United Nations. Last year, it was awarded to individuals from Philippines and Russia, namely Maria Reza and Mr. Dmitry Muratov, for upholding the freedom of expression, which is a precondition for democracy and peace. This year's Nobel Prize for Peace stands awarded to one individual, namely Advocate Mr. Ales Bialystry from Belarus, and two human rights organizations from Russia and Ukraine. Professor Ashutosh from Department of Political Science of Punjab University recommended to us the names of Professor Anupama Roy from JNU and Professor Ujjwal K. Singh from Delhi University to deliver the expository lectures for this year. The two of them, who teach in the prestigious universities of Delhi, DU and JNU, wrote a celebrated book recently, Election Commission of India, Institutionalizing Democratic Uncertainties. Incidentally, Professor Ashutosh Sharma joined as the first TN Session Professor, which is of Election Commission of India, just about this year. So I'm very happy that Ashutosh recommended these names to us, and I'm grateful to both the speakers for readily consenting, and they will deliver the two lectures, and they would be introduced by Dr. Namita Gupta, Chair of the Center for Human Rights in PU, and Professor Manish Sharma, who has served as the chair of the Gandhian Studies. So with this, I conclude my opening remarks. Back to Kia. Yes, Kia, back to you.
Grover. Thank you, Professor Grover. And now I request Dr. Manish Sharma, Chairperson of the Department of Gandhian and Peace Studies of Punjab University, Chandigarh, to introduce today's guest of honor, Professor Virendra Kumar. Over to you, Dr. Sharma.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Good morning to all of you. First of all, I'm thankful to Professor ArunK.Grover that he had given me this opportunity to participate in these kind of series, and to the other members of the organizations, those who are working in this field. When we are talking about Professor Virendra Kumar, so it's very difficult to introduce him within 4 or 5 minutes, but I will try my level best. Professor Virendra Kumar, Professor Emeritus and alumnus of Punjab University, is an academician par excellence. He was awarded University of Toronto Open Fellowship and Resident Massey College Fellowship, which enabled him to earn the coveted degree of Doctor of Jurisdictional Science in 1973, the first Asian to qualify for this coveted academic distinction. And in fact, University of Toronto awarded this degree after 1952 only to Professor Virendra Kumar. He joined the Department of Law as a lecturer after passing LLM from Punjab University in 1967. And after that, he joined as Professor of Law at Punjab University, Patiala in 1979, and later joined the parent Punjab University, Chandigarh, as professor in 1981. Before he became the professor, before his own teachers, it was a very distinguished feature also that I will talk later on. It's a long story. And thereafter, he served Punjab University as Chairman, Department of Law, Dean Faculty of Law from 1984 to 87, Chief Editor, Punjab University Law Review, 1982 to 85. He was Fellow also, a nominated Fellow of Punjab University. In 1988, he was member of the committee led by Professor Upinder Bakshi of Delhi University. which produced a comprehensive report on curriculum development center in law that was recognized by UGC also, and on the legal education in India in order to promote the excellence in teaching and research. And he was awarded UGC Emeritus Fellow in the law from 2002 to 2004. And in 2004, he had the privilege of being invited to contribute an article on Hindu law overview to the Oxford International Encyclopedia of Legal History that was produced by USA, and it published in multi-volume in 2009. Apart from this, he is founding director of academics of Chandigarh Judicial Academy, and Professor Kumar had contributed more than 102 research articles on various current topics related to social legal issues in national and international legal journals. Apart from this, he's a very gentle human being. जो आप बात करेंगे और जब ये अपनी बात रखेंगे तो उसी से हमें आइडिया हो जाएगा कि कितने हम्बल हैं, और अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट चाहे वो बड़ा हो चाहे छोटा हो, हर कोई उनका मुरीद हो जाता है. सो विद दिस आई वेलकम यू टू दिस ऑनलाइन लेक्चर सीरीज. ओवर टू किया मैम. थैंक यू सो मच once again.
Thank you, Manish ji, for that very beautiful introduction. And now I request Professor Virendra Kumar to express his views. Professor Kumar.
I am beholden to the Society for Promotion of Science and Technology in India for giving me the privilege of joining today's expository lecture on Nobel Prize in Peace for the year 2022, to be delivered by our two very distinguished political scientists. We are indeed looking forward to listening to their erudite, incisive exposition. However, on my own part, I wish to raise a rudimentary expository question. What does the Nobel Peace Prize Award mean to us, the commoners, the members of society at large? From the very citation of the Nobel Prize in Peace for the year 2022, awarded to three entities, we may abstract three commonalities. One, all three of them represent the civil society in their home country. Two, all three of them have hitherto sustained a struggle for development of civil society, a society which is premised on the foundational principle of deep respect for human rights as enunciated in the international document, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, declaring that the rights and freedoms of all human beings are simply non-negotiable. Three, all the three awardees have ventured to develop the civil society by promoting the right of all citizens to criticize the state power and its blatant violation of human rights with impunity. In sum, all the three Nobel Peace Prize awardees together demonstrate the profound significance and the vitality of the civil society for ushering an era of peace and development through structural democracy, which is no other than the constitutional system of governance with people's participation based upon the prime principle of sovereignty of the rule of law. In this backdrop, my expository question with a slight elaboration is, if the continual ceaseless struggle for building up the civil society is the prime parameter for the award of Nobel Prize in Peace to the three entities, and if we happen to apply that very parameter to the analogous situation to very many other countries, including India, where the protection of fundamental rights of citizens against the state is a perpetual constitutional democratic struggle, then we may ask ponderingly, aren't we making all such non-governmental organizations engaged in the task of developing civil societies the world over an equal co-sharer, at least symbolically, in the award of Nobel Peace Prize awarded to three entities? I may reinforce this summation by invoking a concept from the Indian classical tradition. For this, I need to revisit the phraseology of the statement of award, which substantially says that the Nobel Peace Prize for the year 2022 have been awarded jointly to 3 entities, I quote, 1 individual and 2 organizations, unquote. Mr. Ales Bialyatsky of the Republic of Belarus has been awarded the Nobel Prize in Peace as an individual, in contrast with 2 other awardees who have received the Nobel Peace Prize as organizations, one by the name of Memorial, which is Russia's human rights organization, and the other is Center for Civil Liberties, which is Ukrainian human rights organization. In this context, we may yet ask another expository question. Is it truly an award to Mr. Ales Bialyatsky as an individual? Isn't it really an award for the organization which he and his companion founded in 1996 by the name of Vyasna? Isn't it really an award for Vyasna, which has eventually evolved and developed into a broad-based human rights organization? Isn't it really an award from the same Vyasna, which became a member of the International Federation of Human Rights in 2004? By construing the Nobel Peace Prize award to Mr. Bialyatsky as an individual prize, aren't we limiting the value of the Nobel Peace Prize award only to its money value? Unarguably, the value of the Nobel Peace Prize is not just in its declared money value, which is said to be to the tune of 10 million Swedish krona for the full Nobel Prize in 2022, and Ales Bialyatsky would get 1/3 of that 10 million Swedish krona. Truly speaking, its value is something much more. Its true value is truly invaluable, which cannot be measured in terms of money. Its true value lies in the eloquent recognition by the international community of the revolutionary but peaceful work done by each one of the Peace Prize awardees against all odds and for the benefit of humankind. On the analogy of the Indian classical tradition, as manifested in the concept of Mitakshara coparcenary, we may consider all the 3 entities as constituting a coparcenary, in which each one of them is entitled to claim the value of the whole of the Peace Prize, whatever that may be, without impinging upon the similar claim of the other 2 awardees. Because in a coparcenary, there is a community of interest and unity of possession. Interest of one is interest of all. Possession of one is possession of all. Thus, the Nobel Prize in Peace, in my submission, is truly indivisible inasmuch as it is equally shared in full measure by all the peace-loving people around this global village. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Such a wonderful note you finished. Beautiful. And now we shall go on to Dr. Namita Gupta from Center for Human Rights and Duties, Punjab University, Chandigarh. She will introduce Professor Anupama Roy. Namita, please.
Good morning, all. Anupama Roy is a professor at the Center for Political Studies in the School of Social Sciences in Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi. Her research focuses on debates on citizenship, political anthropology of public institutions, constitutionalism, law and democracy, and gender studies. She obtained her master's degree from Allahabad University, MPhil degree from University of Delhi, and her PhD degree from the State University of New York, USA. Her most recent publication is Citizenship Regimes, Law and Belonging, the CAA and NRC in India, published by Oxford University Press 2022. She is the co-author of the book Election Commission of India, Institutionalizing Democratic Uncertainties, and author of Mapping Citizenship in India and Gendered Citizenship Historical and Conceptual Explorations in 2005 and 2013. She has co-edited Dimensions of Constitutional Democracy and Poverty, Gender and Migration in South Asia. Her research articles have appeared in various national and international journals, including Asian Studies Review, Australian Feminist Studies, Citizenship Studies, Critical Asian Studies, Contribution to Indian Sociology, Economic and Political Weekly, to name a few. She was a senior fellow in the Center for Women's Development Studies before she joined the Center for Political Studies in JNU. She has been member of various professional and academic associations, including member of International Advisory Board of Political Studies Review, SAGE, United Kingdom. She has been a visiting scholar in various universities, including Sydney University, University of Warwick, University of Würzburg, Germany. She was Sir Ratan Tata Postdoctoral Fellow at the Institute of Economic Growth in Delhi and Key Technology Fellow Partner Fellow at University of Technology, Sydney, Australia. Ma'am, we welcome you to this web series on Nobel Prize 2022. Now I request Professor Anupama Roy to kindly deliver her address.
Thank you. Professor Roy, please go ahead. We are eagerly waiting for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Society for the Promotion of Science and Technology, for inviting me for this expository lecture series. And thank you, everybody, a lot of whom I recognize, and I may not be able to name all the names individually, but thank you for being here. This is a lecture specifically about the Nobel Peace Prize, which Professor Arun Kumar and Professor Virendra Kumar stated at the beginning itself is a prize, but of a different kind. So the specificity of the Nobel Peace Prize is something that we must bear in mind. If one recalls the institution of the Nobel Peace Prizes, particularly if one recalls the fact that when Alfred Nobel put aside a huge proportion of his wealth to honor and recognize contributions by individuals in various fields, he apportioned a substantial amount of his wealth also to a prize which would recognize what he said at that point in time, which was 1895, that this prize would be given to those who would work for fraternity among nations. So this key word, fraternity, is important. And also those who would work for the diminution of militarization of nations. So, the reduction of standing armies was another goal of the Peace Prize. And a third was those who would promote peace congresses. So a constant communication and conversation among nations was also a desirable accomplishment that the Peace Prize envisaged, which was in 1895. In 1901, the Peace Prizes were instituted. All the prizes, Nobel Prizes, were instituted. And so far, 103 of them have been awarded. And most of these, and if we were to focus on the Peace Prize in particular, which is the concern of our meeting here today, we must also recall that within 50 years of the institution of the prize, the world plunged into two major wars. And these major wars, although they led on to certain conventions of collective negotiation in terms of how people and nations thought about collective security, what they also were a stern reminder of is the enormous potentiality human beings had to destroy themselves. So a monstrous potential that human beings could unleash through technology backed by ideology, and also certain discursive frameworks and instruments of war making that had the potential of wiping out entire populations, present and future. Now, what the Nobel Peace Prize reminds us, not just the Peace Prize that was awarded this year in 2022, but the entire lineage of peace prizes from 1901, is that there is an inextricable association between peace and democracy. The democracy itself is a universal and desirable goal. No nation today can dare say that they don't want to be democratic. And in order to be democratic, there is another component, which is one of peace. And peace itself has been understood differently. And one could say, those of us who work with concepts can say that peace is a polysemous concept. It can mean several things at the same time, but it's certainly not a contested concept in the sense that there would be a struggle among people to say that their notion of peace was the triumphal notion. So what one could actually work with when one thinks of peace is to think of peace as a concept which can be amenable to different interpretations. And all these interpretations can cohabit together peacefully, so as to say. Now, if one was to then say, from 1901 or 1895, when Alfred Nobel imagined something like peace among the Committee of Nations, and 2022, when the peace prizes have been awarded to one individual and two associations, the idea of peace itself has been capacious. It's no longer what Alfred Nobel said in 1895, three components of fraternity, diminution of standing armies, and a concept for nations to come together, converse, and communicate among themselves. It has come to mean a whole lot of things. And as Arun Kumar pointed out in the beginning, and Dr. Virender Kumar also explicated, the first of these prizes has been given to an individual, Alice Bialysky, and two organizations, Memorial and CCL. And the Memorial, Ujjwal will be talking more about the political prisonerhood of Mr. Bialysky. I would focus more on the civil society component of the award and enter into the civil society component of the award, as Professor Virender Kumar pointed out, as an idea which is about a co-parcenary relationship among people, and an idea which is aspirational to its core. And if one looks at the Memorial as an organization, the Memorial was an organization which was formed in Russia in the early years of reforms in the Soviet Union. And if one also recalls the award that was given in the previous year, award was given again to an individual who represented civil society in Russia and had been relentlessly fighting through his newspaper for the freedom of speech and expression in Russia. And the CCL, the Civil Center for Civil Liberties, is another organization in Ukraine, which has somewhat a more recent pedigree, established in 2007, but it became prominent in the context of the pro-Western democracy protests in Ukraine in 2014, which brought down the government of the pro-Russian government of Viktor Vukhanovich. And both of these, the awardee in the previous year and the CCL in this year, are both emblematic of what could be said or would be conceived as one of the major goals of the Peace Prize, is one of thinking about democracy, which is not simply about institutional forms, but something which is embedded into the ideas of a robust civil society, which exists as a kind of a sphere of associational actions, a sphere where a world of appearance in particular, where people can come and state what they want freely and without fear. And through that appearance on what is a public stage, they also get into or enter into what can be called a deliberative, communicative mode of conversation, where I weigh my arguments against arguments by others, but none of us is there to say that my arguments would be, are better than yours because I have the force of numbers, but my argument would be better than yours because within an evaluative frameworks, my arguments have a moral force. So those kind of notions of civil society where freedoms are cherished and organizations that buttress those ideas of freedom then become important. So the two sides that I would be focusing on in terms of how the idea of peace within the long history of Nobel Peace Prizes has become capacious is the site of civil society in the first instance. And the second side is the way in which there has been a pluralization of what exactly it is that the right to peace means. So the one side is of civil society, and the other side is the expression of the right to peace in terms of several different rights. So these are the two sides that I would be focusing on. Now, if one was to look at civil society itself, as the first site in which which is where some of the core concerns of peace seem to lie, and the idea that one individual by himself or herself cannot be the repository of the instrument for the enhancement of peace. There can be instances, or there have been earlier instances of how the Peace Prize has recognized the manner in which democratization of civil society has occurred, because a whole group of people, people were agitated and concerned about what they conceived as, or they saw as the abuse of power, or widespread governmental corruption, or the influence of an oligarchy in power, and how all of these came together to violate human rights. And if one would recall, then again, in the same spirit, the 2015 Peace Prize was given to what was called the National Dialogue Quartet of Tunisia. And this quartet became significant in the context of what emerged in 2011 as the Jasmine Revolution in Tunisia. And if one was to also recall that entire period of Arab Spring and how each of these agitations in Tunisia, in Liberia, in Yemen, all of which were recognized by the Peace Awards, were a series of struggles for democratization that were taking place against what was perceived as unethical, authoritarian regimes which had no regard for human rights. And if the 2000, the National Dialogue Quartet that was awarded the Peace Prize, for example, was a quartet which represented different concerns. The Tunisian General Labor Union. Now, the names themselves are indicative of the popular interests they represent. The Tunisian Confederation of Industry, Trade, and Handicrafts, the Tunisian Human Rights League, and the Tunisian Order of Lawyers. Now, all these organizations came together and spearheaded what the peace Norwegian organizations saw as having come together to struggle for a pluralistic society in Tunisia. The society itself was agitated as a whole, but these four organizations were especially recognized for how they contributed to a pluralistic society in Tunisia. Now, one of the things that this award, which recognized also not the Jasmine Revolution, how an entire people were animated and agitated for the rolling back on of authoritarian government, was also that this revolution paved the way for the adoption of a new constitution and for parliamentary and presidential elections. And both of these are very important components for a democracy to sustain itself. A democracy cannot sustain itself unless there is a higher order law that regulates public power, that constrains arbitrary authority or instills what Ambedkar would call constitutional morality, which is not something which imposes a duty or responsibility on citizens, but it binds everybody, the ruler and the ruled, to run the nation according to a law that the people have given themselves. The institution of popular sovereignty is important in the idea of constitutional democracy itself. And then the holding of just periodic elections is not sufficient. No, it's important then also that in the space of the hiatus between two electoral trials, for example, a deliberative space is constantly being created and recreated, and that is the responsibility of civil society. So what the 2015 award in recognition of the Jasmine Revolution was also recognizing was the order which was run by the logic of the Constitution, the logic of democracy, which was driven by a constitutional order. And if one would then recall how the constitution itself is emblematic of these aspirations of the people, not just the consummation of the 2015 revolution into the emergence of a constitutional democracy in Tunisia, but how nations all over the world have been conscious of the importance of what seems to be an innocuous document, a bare act of the Constitution, into something that can be turned into a transformative text. So if one was to recall again other instances in the world, and more recently perhaps in June 2019, where in a young schoolgirl, Olga Misik, in Moscow, sat before an armed police, a heavily armed Russian riot police in Moscow, protesting with others the suspension of the participation of the opposition in local elections. And she did not just sit cross-legged in front of the riot police. She held a copy of the Constitution in her hands. And she went up, she read out from the Constitution, particularly those portions in the Constitution which inscribe the fundamental rights of the people to freedom of association, participation in the political process, and freedom of expression. And as she read out from the Constitution, she also went up to the police. A schoolgirl with such enormous courage went up to the police and pointed out those sections in the Constitution where those rights were inscribed. Now, Olga Misik was picked up later and detained by the police, not from the site of protest where there would be witnesses to her detention, but from a subway station where there were no witnesses. Now, what the thing I'm trying to point out here is that the idea and linking it up with the Nobel Peace Prize recognition of the Jasmine Revolution is that there can be a connection that one could draw between agitations agitations within civil society for the installation of constitutional democracy, and what kind of transformations are envisaged in this process of transformation of society, the installation of democratic government is an important component. And though people who've written about democracy in recent times have written about the way in which democracy is overwhelmed by certain tendencies which are specific to the turn of the century. And these specific characteristics of democracy through the turn of the century is the way in which democracy is undermined by what are called the self-destructive tendencies that exist within democracy itself. So the democracy could throw up charismatic leaders, charismatic leaders who would claim to have direct communion with the people. And what such charisma can actually do is undermine representative institutions themselves, and and have the tendency of instituting within the body of the ruler the power of the people, so that the ruler claims to be empowered by the people, unmediated by any kind of representation. And also there are a range of other tendencies, including the rapacious capitalism, etc., the growth of surveillance capitalism, etc. But the idea of civil society then is also at the core of how peace can be instituted in non-violent ways. And in some senses, if one was to think of non-violence being that other component of civil society that is important, and one thinks of the legacies of India, the legacies of the civil rights movement in the United States, and also the more contemporary struggles by people, for the installation of responsible government. Instances of such struggles again abound, in the regime of the peace prizes. And one of these, or two of these, I would cite briefly, before moving on to the pluralization of the right to peace itself. One of these awards, peace awards, was given to the first elected woman head of the government in Liberia. Now, this award was given in 2011 to 3 women. And one of these was Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who was the African head of the state of Liberia. The other was again to a peace activist in Lemo called Lemo Gobi, and the third was, again a civil rights activist, a journalist who was from Yemen. Now, the 3 women who were recognized in 2011 were only, when this award was given in 2011, were only one of the 15 women, one among the 15 women who had been awarded the Peace Prize so far, as distinct from 85 men who were awarded. So there is a way in which, on the one hand, there is almost a dominative or hegemonic perception of women being, having those attributes to not just ability to not just talk about peace, but having in themselves that ability to make peace work. So the most peace working, etc., or mobilization of peace is almost always associated with a feminine attribute. But if one was to look at the history of the Peace Awards, till 2011, when 3 women were awarded the Peace Award, they were among only 15 women who had been awarded. However, the contribution of these 3 women was enormous. The African head of the state was again a woman who had since 2003 fought for the installation of constitutional democracy in Liberia. And then Liberia became one of the first states to have a durable institutional form of democracy after decades of civil war. The other Liberian woman, and what did Sirleaf stand for? Now, in the recognition by the awards committee, that no, she was working primarily for women and children. She was working for a zero tolerance policy against corruption, and she made education compulsory and free for all primary age children. So there was then not just the idea of installation of a constitutional democracy, but the idea that something has to be done in the space of society itself to make it resilient to any form of challenges to democracy. And that could come by the eradication of corruption. That could come only when people were educated, and education needed to begin at this level of primary schools itself. The second Liberian woman who got the prize was somebody who again mobilized women to work for peace agreement, bringing different parties that had different ideas of what kind of government should rule them, or whether or not a government which is constitutional would have the capacity to sustain the institutions, or whether the government has to have that kind of coercive force to sustain a regime that could be stable. So if one was to think about constitutional democracy, which is runs within the framework of the Constitution, the peace talks were extremely important. And the journalist, the peace campaigner who was recognized was the women who just came together, dressed themselves in white and refused to budge from the venue of the where the peace talks was happening before a peace talk was actually concluded and a document was drawn, which would then become the foundation for a durable peace in the country. The third, again, was somebody from Yemen, again, part of the entire Arab Spring movement, and a journalist who was taking risk to report from a site of conflict, and reporting in particular on the way in which the repressive forces of the government were being unleashed on non-violent agitators. So the idea of peace then associated not just with constitutional forms of democracy, agitations within society, civil society, that would lead up to the idea institutions have to be sustained by transformations that exist at the level of society itself. And these agitations need to be non-violent in order for the peace to sustain itself. The peace itself is a fragile notion in context of conflict, but peace cannot be an outcome of violence. So the non-violent part of civil society movements has been constantly stressed through the prizes. Now, let me come quickly to the second part, and I have about 5 to 7 minutes to do this. There is, through the entire history of the award of the peace prizes, one can see that the idea of peace itself has not remained the same from the way in which was articulated in 1895 by Alfred Nobel. No, it has come to mean a whole lot of things. No, not just regime sustenance, but regime responsibility. Now, what is it that regimes ought to do in order for democracy to sustain itself? And if one was to list some of those rights, the plural forms that rights have taken over the years, the right of all children to education, eradication of forced labor and oppression, economic development from below, sustainable development, social development, resolution of border conflicts, combating hunger as a weapon of war and conflict, combating sexual violence as a weapon of war and armed conflict, climate change as a challenge to democracy, and the sharing of knowledge among and resources among the nations to protect humanity from catastrophic humanitarian consequences of climate change through human action, of course, but also the use of nuclear weapons. So one could see that the peace itself has come to mean a repository of rights and a whole range of rights, not just the right to be ruled or governed by a government which abides by the rule of law, but also a government that has social commitments. So this kind of commitment to that beholding those who are in power is something that the idea of peace has also come to mean. And notable examples, more recent examples from our neighborhood, for example, 2014, the Peace Award went to Malala Yousafzai for her commitment to the cause of education among women, and to Muhammad Yunus of Bangladesh, who radicalized the idea of poverty itself. And poverty came to mean something different because it was not something that could be seen as as something, that a status that cannot be changed by the efforts of people themselves. So the idea of peace as rights is something that has changed over a period of time. If one was to just recall the way in which through the League of Nations, perhaps, or through the United Nations conventions, when the League of Nations thought of peace as something that was about collective security and collective negotiations, to the United Nations governance, when it also came to be seen as something which was positive and something which was about the rights of oppressed majorities and self-determination, to instruments like the right of people to peace, which was a UN document approved in 1984, which talked about peaceful life of people as a sacred duty of the state. So putting the onus on the state to ensure that peace would mean something that the state should consistently ensure, and ensure through different modalities. More recently, in 1997 in particular, the UNESCO also issued a document on peace. And the document, UNESCO's document on peace is especially significant because it steers us away from what could be seen as a passive notion of peace to say that peace is not about silence. It's not the silence of the victor, silence that comes after the war. No, it is about tolerance. So it is about how much I can know about the other, and how much I can empathize with the other, and how I can, through this relationship of empathy, I can address all the sources of marginalization, indifference, resentment, and hatred that people feel towards each other. So empathy as a bond which institutes tolerance in society and makes civil society a tolerant society and not one marred by hatred and violence, is something that the UNESCO document also talked about. And it also says that condemnation is not enough. What is needed is action, and this action again is important. It's action against not just feeling indignation or outrage, but ensure that there is a mobilization around questions which challenge all of us. Questions of hatred in society, hatred that almost always takes the form of violence these days, and also the way in which we address questions of suffering of others, which like hunger, like sexual violence, which does not seem to be affecting us individually, but they exist in society in rampant forms. So not just feeling outraged, but also, and not just condemning, but an active notion of peace is something that I would feel that the Peace Awards are also normatively steering us towards. So I'll stop here and give the floor back to the admin.
Thank you very much, Professor Anupama, for that very learned exposition. And now I request Professor Ashutosh Kumar to introduce the next speaker of the day, Professor Ujjwal Kumar. Professor Ashutosh. Ashutosh ji,
Yes.
please unmute here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It's a privilege to be given this honorable task to introduce the learned speaker. And I mean, let me at the outset thank to all the organizers, especially Professor ArunK.Grover, who was always, I mean, I've seen him as a man of ideas and a kind of a visionary who had a lot of ideas about well-being of Punjab University. And this is another initiative on your part to start this series of expository lectures. So my duty is to introduce Professor Ujjwal Kumar Singh, who is going to speak now. Professor Ujjwal Singh is a professor in the Department of Political Science in the University of Delhi. He had his master's and MPhil from Delhi University. His PhD was from SOAS, London University. He has been a visiting fellow in the universities in India and in many other universities in the foreign countries. He has been a Rajiv Gandhi visiting chair professor in contemporary Indian studies at University of Technology, Sydney, Australia. He has been also honorary visiting fellow at the University of Würzburg, Germany. And this Fudan University has been a visiting professor. He was also an associate of the University of Technology, Sydney, and a fellow at the Nehru Memorial Museum Library, Tinmurti Bhavan, New Delhi. Professor Singh's specialization lies in the field of law, human rights, constitutionalism, and democracy. He has published several books and edited also so many books, and all of them are from prestigious publication houses like Oxford University Press, SAYS, Routledge. His most recent work is the Election Commission of India, Institutionalizing Democratic Uncertainties. I had the privilege of reviewing it for the Wire. This book was published from Oxford University Press. Earlier books include Human Rights and Peace from SAGE, then Towards Legal Literacy and Introduction to the Laws in India, co-edited with Kamla Sankaran of Delhi University, published by Oxford University Press, 2008. Another book is titled The State, Democracy and Anti-Terror Laws in India, published by SAYS. Professor Singh's doctoral work was on political prisoners in India from SOAS, London University, under the supervision of Dr. David Taylor. And that doctoral dissertation was published by Oxford University Press. And that is something like a seminal work. I mean, anybody who wants to know something about the rights of the political prisoners or the concerned statutory and the legislative provisions which are applicable to the rights of the political prisoners, one has to go to this book. And this book has been, I think, in 2 or 3 editions, and it's a remarkable book. Professor Singh has also published in international journals like EPW, Election Law Journal, Critical Asian Studies, Intelligence and Counterterrorism, Asian Studies Review. He has been also a kind of part activist also. He was member of PUDR, PUCL, I mean, actively associated with PUDR and PUCL. And over and above all, Professor Singh had been a very popular teacher. And let me also add that probably he is the only senior professor designated in Delhi University from social sciences. And currently he is also Dean of Research in the domain of social sciences in Delhi University. So I really very honored that I'm in the company of such illustrious scholars who are now speaking on the theme, which is of such a great importance. Professor Kia.
Thank you, Professor Ashutosh. Thank you very much. Now I request Professor Ujjwal Kumar to start his lecture. Professor Ujjwal Kumar Singh.
Thank you, ma'am. And I saw the minute-to-minute program, and scientists are very precise in terms of their, program. So I have only 20 minutes left, and it's quite an honor to actually.
No, you can. Scientists are also patient people, so you can take as long as you deem fit.
Take your time.
Yeah. So. First, let me thank my colleague, Professor Ashutosh Kumar. He's been very generous. We actually have a very, very long relationship since school. The best part is Professor Kumar would always question me. And that's, I believe, is the basis of all knowledge, questioning. And it's such a privilege to be part, where Professor ArunK.Grover is there. So kind that, I heard you for the first time, and your expository question. I don't have to answer. You actually brought in so well. Professor Harish Puri is here. I'm a fan of his work, and all my colleagues and young ones. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for also who am I to thank you for organizing this series? But this is important. This is absolutely important for not only this community, but community at large. This is tremendous initiative. Sciences and non-sciences, especially Nobel Prize in Peace, which normally not many people would like to venture in, because this really deals with state power, as Vrindaji said. And people do not really wish to bring in state power. So as Professor Virendra Kumar said, that what lessons do we have? So let's not forget, and probably all of us, we have in mind that nearly 8 years back, 3 rationalists were killed in India, and their trial is still continuing. Narendra Bolkar, Gopal Pansare, M.N. Kalburgi, and journalist Gauri Lankesh. So all societies will take lessons. And we need to also confront the realities in which we live, where thinking people, because they were actually bringing scientific temper, which is a constitutional values, they would be targeted. So this is a story from Belarus, of course, which I'll be talking about, a bit of China and Myanmar too, but stories as well as for India. And we do have political prisoners, because we actually, when we're talking about Nobel Prize winners, in this case, we are talking about political prisoners very clearly. So thank you so much. History turns. When I joined Punjab University, the first presentation I made was on political prisoners itself. So it's complete turn as such. So somewhere I'll bring in the framework of state democracy and dissent, and how does it figure in kind of the existing Nobel Prize winner in the account. So we need to be a bit aware of what is Belarus, where is it, what kind of system they have, and why in such system you have a person who is knowledgeable, who Bialetsky was actually, after graduate, he became head of a museum. So we know through Bengt Anderson that museums and memorials are a very important part of making of nation building. But here you have a very interesting turn where museum strikes back. This person who's actually organizing museum became a political activist. And somewhere that period, 1989, 1991 figures very importantly, because among so many Nobel laureates, at least 3 of them got Nobel Prize when they were incarcerated, when they were behind the prisons. And you have example, latest being Belarus, but earlier you had China and Myanmar. So 1990s is something interesting, and it's very interesting for Belarus, and implications we see it's happening now. So if we bring in briefly 1989, if we all remember, it was Tiananmen Square. Students agitated and tanks were rolled in, and that movement for democratic transformation was crushed. And in light of that, we do have a Nobel Prize winner from China, Liu Xiaobo. Interestingly, Liu Xiaobo, when he was writing, was speaking, he actually cited Chinese Constitution, and he cited Article 35 of the Chinese Constitution, which says that Chinese citizens will enjoy freedom of speech, of the press, of assembly, of association, of procession, and of demonstration. It's mentioned in the Chinese Constitution. Now we know that the gap between the promises, the constitutional promises, and the practices as such. But what we get is interesting picture of the whole idea of constitutionalism. Constitutionalism is of course a text, it's a value framework, it's aspiration, but it is also a text which ensures governance. But many ways it's a text for citizens of the country, and maybe as Indian Constitution says, citizens it's not only for citizens, but persons. Persons would be everyone around, fine, who is in this territory, even non-citizens. They do have certain rights. So it's a text both of governance and the text of resistance, to use Professor Upen Bakshi's phrase. So what Lin Xiao was doing, he was actually using the text of the Chinese Constitution to remind the people who were in power in China that, well, this is our right. At least peaceful demonstration is something which we stand for. But he's incarcerated and he later died. He was awarded a Nobel Prize, in 2010. So these are our neighbors, not too far. Belarus may be a bit distant, but People's Republic of China is our neighbor. And then another neighbor, Myanmar. We know that Aung San Suu Kyi got a Nobel Prize in 1991, and she was under incarceration from 1989 onwards for 15 years. And that's another interesting story, that she was incarcerated against military junta. So there was no, at least even sham of democracy wasn't there. And so after many, many decades, they did have elections. And the group which she was representing won. They came into power, even with restricted mandate, because military still continued in power. Now, thereafter, remaining in power, then there was another sort of military coup. And in 2019-20, military said no. They took over, and Aung San Suu Kyi was again incarcerated. Now, there's an interesting story, because Nobel laureate, she was there. And when Rohingya issue came up, she was questioned. She was questioned that here is a Nobel laureate who stood for Burmese people. Now she's not willing to pay attention to a minority and their suffering. So world over, there was censors against that. There was question mark on Aung San Suu Kyi. Now she's back in prison. So history is not that unilinear process where, once you have elections, you have democracy, you have Nobel awardee who is not, she, as per law, she could not become president, even prime minister, she remained just a state councillor. And the twist of history, that she became unpopular because though she had enormous support among the Buddhist Myanmar people, but not among the Rohingya, because she did not stand for them. Fine. Now, last one, I'll come back to Alice Bielaczewski. But what I want to bring in, that we are talking about societies, which sometimes claim to be democracy. And somewhere Nobel Peace Prizes also further many ways, as Professor Vrindaji said and Professor Anupama Roy said, the aim is to strengthen, to give some kind of energy back to civil society. It's distance, it's autonomous sphere where citizens could exercise their freedom, express themselves, and that is hallmark of modern society. Free to think, free to question, free to have education, free to have livelihood, and likewise. Now, in China and Myanmar, we have seen for the past many decades, they did not have democracy. It wasn't a fair system. It was not an open system of multi-party competitive system. It was state-regulated economy for both countries in different ways. One claims to be represented by party, another by military junta. Belarus has another interesting story to tell us. Belarus is one of those small nation states which emerged after collapse of Soviet Union. Now, Soviet Union, enormously powerful, claimed to be a constitutional democracy, socialist constitutionalism. It had 4 constitutions, starting with 1917, 24, 36, 77, and thereafter collapse of Soviet Union. So, it claimed to have, and if one looks at the text of Soviet Union, different constitutions, you have literally every right which you can think of as a part of their constitutional framework. But what was missing was the first generation of rights. There's a rights revolution, first generation, second generation, third generation. First generation was simply civil and political rights. Fine. Claim is that only if as a human we are free to express ourselves, we can claim to get other rights. If we do not have that claim, then probably other claims won't materialize. So what Soviet Union lacked was failure of constitutional values and constitutional democracy. There are many other reasons, economic, social, political, global, especially, the competitive regime of one superpower, another superpower. But if you look at within Soviet Union, it is a fact we can say at present time that they lack that kind of constitutional values and especially civil and political rights. That led to its failure. Belarus was also one of the countries which emerged out of that, but Belarus has a different trajectory. Unlike many other sort of, say Latvian countries, Estonia and others, even Central Asian republics, there was overwhelming support for Soviet kind of system. In the referendum they had in 1991, around 80% voted for Soviet kind of system to continue, that kind of economy, right? So now you're talking about a country which is emerging, which wants to follow the older path, and then you have dissenters who do not agree to that. So the larger debate would be a market, opening up market, more freedom, more liberties, and more association with the Western countries. That was one. And then Belarus opted for another. Now, in this background, you have Lukashenko, who comes into power in 1994. And since 1994, the person remains in power to the extent in certain elections, there were only 1 or 2 representatives from opposition. So elections for the sake of elections were held, but it was one party and one person which remained into power and which has remained into power. So 2019, fairly recent election that they had, sort of around 5 lakh people participated, on streets. So they did have, mass participation. There was questioning of the order, but the otherwise global politics and the domestic politics where one person, one regime that prevailed. So it's amidst this that we can tell the story of, Alex Bialystsky. Now, like Liu Xiaobo and Aung San Suu Kyi, again, Alice Bialystsky was also in prison and for a long time. If anyone remember, let's not be naive, they all have been punished, put under detention, and kind of charges which are brought in. which, I'm saying because, Professor Virendra Kumarji rightly reminded us, what lessons do we draw? Sometimes it's about smuggling, sometimes like, money laundering. Aung San Suu Kyi was, Chinese dissidents actually punished for that they get fund from outside, they are involved in smuggling. Anti-national is a term which we are more familiar. Interestingly, I'm sure that people, senior colleagues over here who are aware that this phrase was actually brought during emergency. It was actually put in the Constitution of India and later amended and removed. One can look at the older constitutional text. It's something which is prevalent in this country now as much, but likewise traitors and things like this, it's prevalent in all over the world. And the Nobel laureates today, what we find them, they have been dubbed as anti-national, traitors. Dissident is a nice term which we are using, because we believe some democracy prevails and we are bringing such thing. So, let's take a story forward, what Bialatiska was doing in Belarus. So he got a graduate degree in 1989, and he was elected to the post of museum staff. Now, again, that's interesting. Normally, museum staff is not elected. They are appointed as such, but he was elected to the post. And he was there till 1998, Bogdanovich Museum, as it was called. And it was a literary museum of the country. So some association with literature as such for him. He also opened a Russian branch in Yaroslav. And then what happens, 1994, there's a regime change and there is political repression in Belarus. So he set up Vyasna, a counselor for human rights as such, along with others. Thereafter, he was co-founder of the Belarusian Popular Front, which talked about alternative vote movement in there. In 2011, Bialatiski was arrested. And because, there was reported that he has foreign bank accounts, and in order to, so he's whatever trump up charges was there. He was in jail, and his writing in jail is something, let me quote what he's writing in jail. This was an interview which he gave to Belarusian media. He says, you are part of a unit of more than 100 people. It's a jail. You live in a section 15. None of them make any contact with you. So all sections, they're separate. They cannot make any contact. Because if someone says hello to you or something about the weather or the soccer game, tomorrow he'll be gone. Now, fear is not something which you can write. Fear is something which you feel, you live, fine? And then you die. So a small thing, hello, what is the weather? What was the score in soccer game? Person will be removed. When I arrived at the zone, quote unquote, the zone, ZONE zone, in Babruevska, the unit was cleared of anyone who subscribed to the will of the people. That's his word. It was cleared of, purified. 4 people were moved at once to another unit. And that is something profound what you're saying. So I lived in this vacuum until my very last minute there. We talk of human rights because we believe in something called humanness, as Professor Virendra Kumar, you rightly said. No, these are inalienable. We are born with those. But then we live in a vacuum. If we're living in a vacuum, and that's what is undercell is called, that is what solitary confinement is called. It's all over the world. So, it's not just a war. It's not just a struggle. It's actually the whole life. Many of these people have spent the whole life. So it's not just one moment. It's not 2010, 1991, or 2022. That will be etched in our memory. But the life is a lesson because they have constantly stood up. And we know academicians have stood up. We know Ben Anderson took up the cause of East Timor and he was banned from Indonesia. He couldn't go back to Indonesia. So, this is a story all over the world. It was not the first time that Bialatiski was actually nominated for Nobel Prize. 2006, 2007, 2013, 2014. So people who would question that, it's in the context of Ukraine-Russia war. Well, it is happening because, see, remember, these are not pure things. There's always some debate around who gets when, which award, what time, right? And mostly critique is pushing the Western agenda. But the fact is, Belatysky did not require Ukraine, Russian war to get this award, right? Belarus is part of Russia right now. Russia is using forces from Belarus to attack Ukraine. But he's been there for the last 20, 30 years, standing for the same cause, right? And he was nominated so many times, right? There was hope that he would win in 2012, but anyway, he spent around more than 1,000 days in prison, and he wrote something called Prison Literature. And then when he was released, said, I'm not from the jail. I'm completely comfortable here. There's irony over there. Even at the zone, I was fairly comfortable. This is his own prison days, because I was around my own people. This matters to me. Maybe I'm a bit old, but I care about the atmosphere of the Belarus society. Such as it is, when I'm in the West, I feel out of place. Very clear. I'm out of place. I'm there amongst the own people. I feel more comfortable, whether it's zone, quote unquote, prison, or whether it's outside. So here is a person who's a patriot, who's standing by his own people, standing by his own cause, and the organization still continues. It continues to, So there's a report in September 2022. There's en masse arrest of people who are anti-war. Again, the story is not new. First World War, Second World War, there were conscious objectors who opposed the war, right? And who were incarcerated. As on 1st October 2022, Vyasna reported 1,324 political prisoners in Belarus. Less than 10 million people, Belarus. 1,324 people probably would not matter given the scale in which we think, fine. But here is at least a group which is still surviving, which is still coming up with reports on political prisoners. We are a huge country, more than 1 billion. Not many, too many reports on political prisoners would be coming in India. So that's the lesson for us. We carry on. And so let me bring something which many of you probably are, more familiar than me, Edward Galliano. So Edward Galliano, some insightful, I always like his statements. And he come with the statement like, women fear men and men fear fearless women. A story of India. Fearless women are all around in this country. And given the state of NCRB reporting, women fear men, and on the other hand, you have fear of fearless women. Fears of doors without locks, of time without watches, of children without television. Now, remember, if we don't put lock, we really apprehensive what will happen. A society in which there are no locks, that would be so interesting. Fear of crowds, fear of solitude, fear of what was and what could be, fear of dying, fear of living. And still, in spite of all this fear, what happens? You do have political prisoners and you do have civil rights activists who take up the cause. And once in a while, 100 years, probably 3 to 4 times, organization called Noble would come in and recognize the contribution of, one, it's a tip of iceberg, one soul, one human, all the time, and acknowledge to remind us our duty towards our own society. And probably, if I'm not wrong, sir, and you correct, because it's a society of scientists as such, because there's one value, that is freedom of human ideas, which is essential condition for health of science, and which is also essential condition, that is freedom of human ideas, is essential condition for humanity as a whole. So let me thank you, sir. And I see Professor S. Sharma, a long time, Good to see you, sir. But thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ujjwal, for a very enlightening talk. I also wish to thank Professor Anupama and Professor Virendra Kumar for enlightening all of us. So this is a time to go back to our audience and see if there are some queries, some comments from them for the speakers or for the general audience. So please raise your hands and unmute yourself and welcome to speak. So maybe I could invite Professor Harish Puri, Mr. Harish Puri, to first say something. Please unmute yourself. Harish Puri ji.
Please unmute, sir. Please unmute.
Please unmute yourself. Harish ji, please unmute yourself. Harish ji, please unmute yourself. Yes, thank you.
I tried quite a bit, actually didn't function. I must congratulate Ujjwal. It's delightful seeing you and listening to you. And Professor Anupama Roy. Actually, I didn't have any idea that I would be making any comment. The point significant actually, which Professor Virendra Kumar raised, what do we make of it? Awards are given, celebrations are held, and we have profound hypocrisy. You talked of best words written about freedom in the Chinese Constitution and the Russian Constitution, and also in our Constitution. And we know that in practice, unless the civil society has the strength to question, my problem actually I'm facing today is not merely the violation of the human rights by the functionaries of the government in making a joke of the laws. The real question is what is happening to our society. And certainly when we are talking about Nobel Peace Prize for Democracy, we are more concerned about the strength of the civil society. And now, the thing which is on my mind is the 11 culprits who have been really released now, the Balkis Bano case. The kind of not only some kind of a celebration by a particular section of the people, but an almost absolute silence by all the political parties and sensible academics all over the country. Surely several articles have appeared, surely debates have been held, but you don't feel strengthened by that. The concern is that our society seems to be accepting passively tremendous violation of the human rights in our country. I see, for example, in other concern, we have this so-called sadhu, Sache Saudewala, who has been released on parole, and see and behold, here is a criminal, rapist, who raped his own follower women of the age of his daughter, and is convicted of a murder, and see the number of people who come to honor and get some kind of a guidance from this. So these godmen, Punjab is notorious for this, almost 9,000 to 10,000 village gurus and deras. When you have a society which takes respite in this kind of a blind faith, really, one cannot expect that they would really take up cudgels when there is a violation of human rights. What do we do about this? Energizing the civil society to take courage and question the authorities when there is a violation. This was the kind of feeling I wanted to express. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harishji. So may I invite Professor Ghumman to say something? Professor Ghumman, please unmute yourself. Professor Ghumman?
Yes, please. I was in another meeting and missed major proceedings. And hence, I think I can't justify myself to make an observation because there is another meeting chaired by the Vice Chancellor. I was in that meeting and hence missed part of it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So, Ujwalji, would you like to come back?
Sure, sir. You have two hands up, one Manish Sharma and one Lalan Baghel.
Okay, so may I invite Lalanji first? Lalan Baghelji.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you. मैं तो अपना अहलाद व्यक्त करना चाहता हूं कि उज्जवल सर को और अनुपमा मैम को इतने लंबे समय के बाद सुना, तो आई कुडंट रेजिस्ट दिस फीलिंग। पर साथ में मेरा एक सवाल भी है जो लगातार शायद आप लोगों का भी सवाल हो। हिंदुस्तानी में रख रहा हूं, शायद सब
नहीं, यू आर वेलकम, प्लीज कंटिन्यू।
जी, तो आज के दौर में एक सेल्फ सेंसरशिप हो गई है। क्लास में जब एक टीचर पेडागॉग की तरह जाता है, इंगेज करता है, तो उसको उदाहरण अमेरिका से ढूंढने पड़ते हैं, उसको उदाहरण बहुत दूसरे कंट्रीज से ढूंढने पड़ते हैं। तो इस संकट से कैसे निपटें? ये व्यक्ति का संकट नहीं है, कहीं ना कहीं हम सबके अंदर धीरे धीरे रास्ता बना रहा है। तो मुझे लगता है ये ह्यूमन राइट्स और नोबेल पीस प्राइज की बात करते हुए छोटे छोटे जो सिविल सोसाइटी के मुद्दे हैं, मैं लगभग एक लास्ट बात कह के अपनी बात खत्म करूंगा। चंडीगढ़ में मैं लगभग 27-28 साल से हूं। जो प्रोटेस्ट में लोग जाते थे उनकी संख्या कम हो रही है, संख्या बढ़ भी जा रही है, लेकिन इसके बावजूद भी जो हमारे सो कॉल कोट एंड कोट कन्वर्सेशन के एकेडमिक हैं, उनको बहुत एक लंबे समय से सेल्फ सेंसरशिप से जाना पड़ रहा है। तो इस पैराडॉक्स को कहां से लोकेट करें? सिविल सोसाइटी, डेमोक्रेसी एंड पीस, तीनों को यदि हम जोड़ के देखें एक ट्रायंगल की तरह। शुक्रिया, थैंक यू।
मनीष जी, प्लीज अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ।
थैंक यू सो मच सर। ललन जी ने काफी हद तक मेरा काम इजी कर दिया है, बट उसके साथ के साथ जो बात वीरेंद्र सर ने भी बात रखी थी कि गांधी के डिपार्टमेंट से हूं, तो उज्जवल सर को पहले भी सुना है और अनुपमा मैम को भी, और गांधी से काफी कुछ कोरिलेट कर भी कर पाएंगे आप लोग कि गांधी जो चैंपियन ऑफ ह्यूमन राइट्स भी माने जाते हैं और नॉन वायलेंस की बात करते हैं, तो वहां पर नोबेल पीस प्राइज कमेटी में 3 बार उनका फॉरवर्ड भी किया गया नाम, बट वो एक्सेप्ट नहीं किया गया। तो जब इस तरीके के लोगों को जो हम लोग रिकॉग्निशन नहीं देते हैं नोबेल पीस प्राइज कमेटी द्वारा और उन सब चीजों के द्वारा, तो उस चीज को ही हम लोग आगे सब कुछ लेके आ रहे हैं। तो कहीं ना कहीं हमें आज की डेट में जो नोबेल पीस प्राइज जो कमेटी है उसके जो मापदंड है उनको बदलने की क्या जरूरत नहीं लगती? दूसरा, क्या हम एक स्पेसिफिक एक ही कंट्री को क्यों आगे ज्यादा हाईलाइट कर रहे हैं जबकि और दूसरी जगह भी बहुत अच्छा काम हो रहा है? तो वो एक डिस्क्रिमिनेशन वाली जो भावना है जिसके लिए थोड़ा सा कुछ काम होना चाहिए। और शायद हरीश पुरी सर ने भी जो बात कही थी कि कहीं ना कहीं हम एक इंडिविजुअल उसके लिए जा रहे हैं और एक सिर्फ अपने लिए जो बात करने की बात कर रहे हैं, वो अपने सिर्फ अपने बेनिफिट्स की बात कर रहे हैं। तो हमें कुछ ना कुछ उस पर सोचने की जरूरत है। ये मेरा एक सबमिशन है। ओवर टू यू सर। थैंक यू।
Professor Kant?
Yes, I must congratulate Professor Anupma Roy and Professor Ujjwal Singh ji for these enlightening lectures we have today. In fact, the issues which I wish to raise have already been mentioned by Shri Manish Sharma ji regarding, is it that political considerations go into deciding peace prize? For instance, the instances are Malala and the second, Satyarthi. They wanted to balance Pakistan and India. Likewise, even Dalai Lama it was really political. Even this peace prize is balancing political between Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine for that matter. It is really the war there which has probably brought in these issues. Secondly, Professor Harish Puri really mentioned that the civil society in India probably has not performed, rather has not been able to perform its function. And he has mentioned a number of cases where rather highlighting where we need to do a great deal of introspection. Thank you, sir. Thank you a lot.
So with this, I go back to Anupama ji and Ujjwal ji for the last comment from them before we conclude. In the meanwhile, I'll request Mahipal ji to see whether there are some things posted on the Facebook or the chat box. So I go back to Anupama ji first, followed by Ujjwal ji.
Thank you, Professor Grover, and thank you everybody for answering the for those questions. I wish I could see Lalan. I haven't seen him in a long time. So yeah, self-censorship is a personal choice for a lot of people, but it's also something that is exists in a context of coercion. So one could look at censorship of the self as a response to a coercive moment. And people, like, I am thinking about what I said today before this audience. And I'm thinking about, when I spoke about the Constitution and agitations that use the Constitution as an agitprop, I was also perhaps occluding the way in which the Constitution existed as an insurgent text in a lot of demonstrations that happened in India before the pandemic, and particularly around the Citizenship Amendment Act. And so if you were to think about agitations all over India, in Shaheen Bagh, in Lucknow, in large parts of Bihar, Assam, all over the country, both the Constitution and the Indian flag were inextricable parts of the agitation. And I think, bringing in similar kinds of arguments, bringing in similar kinds of events that were around which people got together, brings up also moments for us to reflect upon. What is it when we mean when we talk about the Constitution, and whether the Constitution, which was for the longest time seen as a bourgeois text, transforms itself into a text which can be held up by people in its physical form as a powerful tool for demonstration. So and it's interesting how in India, in the context of the agitations against the CAA, the constitutional text, the bare act of the Constitution, became a bestseller on Amazon. The Hindi bare text of the Constitution was selling the largest numbers of copies for a year, which basically meant that people were not simply just reading the Constitution, the soft copy of the Constitution, but wanted the physical copy of the Constitution as a material artifact to come out with it on the street and hold it up. So I think there is a strong resonance that people have with such symbols, which are translated into potential symbols of protest. And if you recall the agitation in front of the Jama Masjid, where and the subsequent detention of the agitators, and the High Court judge who gave bail to one of the leaders told the police officer, the Delhi police officer, have you not read the Constitution? So there are instances where such insurgent readings of what is what of the constitutional text are pretty much rampant, and there are several occasions, whether in the written or in the speech forms, that people do transgress those kind of discipline restraints that they put upon themselves and speak about it vocally. And in class as well, as all of us as teachers know that the students themselves are the most vocal and vociferous in bringing out these issues, even if you were as a teacher not bringing it out, or as you said, bringing it before the class through examples which were not your own. So I think that kind of self-censorship as a coercive mode of silencing is we may want to see it self-censorship as a coercive silencing, and the ways in which we can think of maybe breaking those silences. And to both Manish and to Professor Kent, if the idea of if you look at the long list of Nobel Peace Prize winners, there were people like Obama who received the prize, and the idea that you got when Obama received the prize was that it's basically a recognition of people, world leaders recourse to war to bring peace, and whether that it can be seen as a good enough appropriate candidate for the award. What I would also how we look at these awards is important, not simply in terms of who gets it, who does not get the award, but also the way in which the ideas that get elaborated through those awards, and therefore this is one of the forums where I thought some of those ideas are made familiar to us, and in terms of how we associate ourselves with those ideas and see them resonate in our specific context. So that's how I would, even when there is you'd recall when Kailash Satyarthi got the award with Malala Yousafzai, there was no recognition within India of the award that Kailash Satyarthi got, because no way would the Indian government recognize that there was something called coerced labor, child labor in India, and then there's this man who was saving them. So there is then a lot of politics around the awards, but also a way in which those concerns become normative concerns for people like us.
Thank you, Anupama. So I go back to Professor Ujjwal Singh ji. Last comment.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. I mean, these are interventions from some very knowledgeable people. So, I mean, I don't claim to have an answer, but I'll have a viewpoint like others. And Professor Grover accept that, these all knowledgeable people who part of this. And also, above all, I mean, we all live with hope. And what better hope than what this society is organizing? With all this of culture of silence, of self-censorship, it's amazing job with this society is organized. And organizing for the past 5 years, I'm sure it will carry on. What's been done by the society where we sharing ideas as such. For larger thing, let me bring in a democracy puzzle over here. 3 countries which I talked about, Nobel Laureate winners, China, Myanmar, and Belarus. You have a sort of sharp contrast. These are authoritarian regime. So
last.
So you have this sharpness which is there. I mean, again, it can't be in terms of black and white, but things are more transparent. So some of these, concerns emerges in a more transparent manner. But say, country in which we live, it won't be so sharp because there is this democracy peg which comes in. Now, those who from different sides would claim that, well, we have numbers, we have ideas, and we have won through the ideas. And ideas are a very important part which play a role in any democracy. Now, so in that sense, democracy puzzle is one of number. Number matters, right? And we can't deny that. But if only democracy was only about numbers, I mean, numbers would also be in terms of heterogeneity. There's so many different people coming together, voting for some party, some group as such. But the moment to transform this democracy and numbers to realm of ideas, that is another scenario. With so many ideas existing, how could one idea be seen as the only correct one? Now, there is a challenge. It's a challenge of knowledge system. Because dissent, not only in terms of political sphere, but also dissent within knowledge sphere, fine? And there probably there need not be any censorship. See, idea is, we think of democracy as political participation, but we, especially this audience, we know that there's no better powerful tool than first literacy, and then informed literacy, which we call education. You give a book in the hand of a person may do like, for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, but someday something will strike. That thing will strike. So in that sense, that openness is there. And absolutely, self-censorship is something which we are doing, but the spaces are there. So that in terms of, we know democracy is way beyond numbers. It's not majoritarism. It's about rule of law, fine? It is about, number and elections are important component, necessary conditions, but they are not sufficient condition for democracy. Sufficient condition would bring in rights, rule of law, constitutionalism, protection for minorities. And what Dr. Ambedkar said, public conscience. Public conscience is not when you are hurt, when you are threatened. Public conscience when someone else is hurt. So when we talk about Nobel laureates, they are public intellectuals in the sense that they speak for public conscience, right? When others get, offended, hurt, damaged, threatened, and there probably there is lack, something which we are lacking. Now, within that framework, if we take up, some of the very, very knowledgeable interventions, Manishji, whether, and I'm sure heart to heart, whether Gandhi is accorded Nobel, prize or not, a person who actually understood what is the worth of salt and what is the worth of body and what is worth of, clothes, who could actually, seep through the body and reach the soul. So probably it's not Nobel, more than Nobel, prize. Who led the nation towards, remember, Professor Vrindaji talked about this co-personality. Actually, we had nation being brought in together. So that's something amazing. So remember, it's not that we are differing. We are actually saying that, Nobel Prize would be a narrow thing in that larger sense. I mean, Harish Puriji, what to say, sir, absolutely, it's political culture. It's political culture. And numbers, but in terms of ideas. So I have learned that, you have abusive and you have sort of criminals also there. But any sane voice would actually matter, especially to younger lot, because younger lot in the universities, they are uneasy. You scratch a bit and the questions would start coming because it's their life which matters. So Professor Kind, no doubt political consideration would have mattered. But I did some research on Alex Beletinsky, He was nominated so many times. So now, whatever Nobel Prize may be doing it, but here you have a person who stands for democracy, who's been in jail for 15 years, 20 years. Now, Nobel was actually, in that sense, giving itself something by recognizing people are there. So I won't bring this nation state political consideration. It's the simple recognition of people who've been involved for decades. It's not about 1 year. It's not about one Nobel Prize in terms of, I'm sorry, I'm not from sciences, but let's not be offended. For a chemistry or, physics, one invention. Here you talk about life. Life not for self, but life of the entire nation. It's Belarus nation, it's Myanmar nation, it's Chinese nation, it's people as such. Fine. So Nobel may be one intervention, but it's, and good that it gives us an opportunity to talk about it. But more than that, irrespective of Nobel, here is a person whom we must talk about it. And not only one, we must talk about such people all over the world. That's the critical element we need to bring in. Nananji's self-censorship is there, but see, I do that. Honestly, let me confess, I do that. And so I remember my own teacher would say, if they stopped me teaching political science, if they stopped me teaching, Marx, I taught Plato and Aristotle through Marx. So, Ranjit Singh was given, asked to teach classical political thinkers rather than Karl Marx. So we always will have ways to bring things what we wish to bring in, and Belarus is good for me. I wish actually I had a full. This gives me inspiration. I would have half a class on Belarus and this Nobel, and bring everything and let students imagine what's going to happen in their world. So why to give up? Have this and this both. Don't give up anything. But thank you so much, sir.
May I invite my young colleague, Dr. Pooja, from Indian National Young Academy of Sciences, to propose a vote of thanks. Pooja.
Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of the organizing committee, it's a matter of pride for me to propose this form of vote of thanks for this today's very enlightening, very expository lecture. It has been a very learning experience being from a scientific community. I think there are many people from this on this platform, and we, I think, never think in that particular angle. And I think there is a need to work in collaboration, not in silos for different disciplines. We have seen the case of Ukraine war, and we have seen how different scientists also, they raise their voices for this whatever happened. So I think it's important that we do understand that the science and technology has a larger impact on the society, to bring the peace in the society. That is the larger aim of even the science and technology. And I must thank today's speakers, today's chief of guest, and for bringing up very nice topic, bringing up the role of constitution, human rights, the work done by several stalwarts and several countries, and enlightening us through their work. And I think one of the question which was raised, that society is also going down, like not accepting the things. So I think there the role of the science can come forward, because the people blindly follow where they feel comfortable. So how we can make them aware, that's also some scientific community can play a role, and we can work with the community working towards the peace for a larger goal. And I'm thankful to SPSTI and all the local chapters for bringing this series of lecture at this platform and bringing all people together. So I'm thankful to all the participants for being there throughout this 2-hour program. And I invite all of you to join us for the next lecture in this series. Thank you.
So our next lecture in the series is on the vision for IISERs, to be delivered by Director IISER, Professor J. Gaurishankar, a Padma Shri awardee and a very well-known scientist of contemporary India. So that lecture is on November 12, Saturday, 11 a.m., the same time. And via his lecture, we also commemorate the National Education Day, which is on November 11. So we are doing it on November 12, which is a Saturday, but we'll also commemorate the National Education Day via the lecture by Professor Gauri Shankar. And it will be followed by Nobel Prize in Medicine on November 26, Chemistry on December 3, and Economics on December 10. And in between, on November 25, we'll have a lecture on the vision for Punjab Engineering College by Director Peck, Professor Sethia on November 25. That will be in the hybrid mode at the Punjab Engineering College and webcast as well on the SPSTI platform. So I thank all of you for having joined us. Please keep joining whenever you have time at our forum. We are at halfway mark. 2.5 years have passed since we started these lectures, and I'm sure Pooja and her colleagues will keep it going for as long as it can be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Very informative.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Mahipalji, you can close the meeting.